my breath away. Can't be left waiting on no time a dozen. But you're just the type to do what you like, and I love it. Sometimes I wonder how to quicker figure you out. Get to speak in my mind, you put a kiss to my mouth. Devoured by the power of our union. Just can't stop what has already started, darling, I'm only human. For me to this a pact, a promise, harmony calling us all odds in our favor. What time better to run away together? Made in heaven, amazing sending. Yes, set before me, normally I play hard to get, but you got me saying, okie dokie, hold me closely, yo, me and me only, so be.
Hi.
Hello, Anne. Thank you very much for doing these interviews.
Thank you for coming, Minka. Minka van Beuzekom.
Minka van Beuzekom.
I'm sorry.
Don't be intimidated by all those letters. Van Beuzekom.
Van Beuzekom.
Yes.
You're running for council.
I'm already on the
council.
council, the city council in Cambridge, and I am running for re-election.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to
Is this
say,
the second term or the third?
this is just my 21st month. This is my first term. So I have to say that running for re-election is slightly different from running as a challenger. So I'm figuring out the nuances.
How is it different?
Well, people know who you are. That's a good thing. So when I call them up and say, I'm your city councilor, they say, yes, I know. And I'm glad that you are. So that's nice to have somebody say that. And
what do they know you for?
I think they know me for not just sitting idly by while change happens. So they know me for asking questions, good questions, tough questions, trying to get to the bottom of how decisions are made. I'm very much interested in transparency of decision making. So that sounds like a gobbledygooky kind of thing to say, but it really means that everybody understands the process that was used to reach a decision. Things don't happen behind closed doors. And not that, you know, there's a lot of big decisions that are made behind closed doors, but I think I've opened the door and allowed a lot of light and questions to come in. So people know me for that.
Which door?
The door of the city manager's office, perhaps. You can call it that door.
I see.
Yes.
Is working with Rossi similar to working with Healy?
I would think it's different. It's different because Rossi is a much more, I would say he's a much more extroverted person. So he likes to be out in public. He likes to go to meetings. He likes to answer questions. And he does make promises, and as far as I know, he does follow through. If he says he'll get back to you, you know, he does get back to you. And I think that's good. And he has enabled his department heads to be much more interactive with us as counselors. And I think in the previous administration there was a bit of a, you know,
he does his thing and
yes,
we do ours?
Right. So I think it feels like there's more cooperation and collaboration.
So what are the major issues before the council?
Well,
what are you going to do in the next 2 years?
Once I get elected, I like the way you said that. So the biggest challenge facing the city right now is all the development. And it's happening in North Point, it's happening in Alewife, it's happening in Kendall, it's happening in Central Square, it's happening in Cambridgeport. So almost all of the different areas of Cambridge are being developed more. So I worry about that. Are we following some kind of a grand plan that I don't really know what it is?
So you're not following a plan?
You know, this community development says there is a plan. If I look at it, it seems pretty outdated and in need of updating. So I'm not sure that we're operating under a new plan that's completely relevant to the way we're developing now. And that affects traffic, that affects open space that's being kind of crowded. I want to make sure that we keep the open space open and available to the public. I've been a big advocate of parcels of, you know, land that's privately owned, making sure that the public has access to it. One of the wonderful things about MIT is how open their campus is. So you can wander all over it. They've got lots of lovely open spaces. And I want that to translate into the new development that's coming here. For instance, Novartis on Mass Ave They're going to build an award-winning, once it's done, it will get every, award in the book is gonna be thrown at that building. But it essentially will have an open courtyard.
Uh-huh.
And when they originally proposed the design, it was gonna be closed to the public. So you could peer through a fence and see this lovely, oasis, but it wasn't accessible to the public. So one of the things that I think I did with community development by my side was make sure that those gates were open and that people could go in. Because that publicly accessible private space is really important to keeping the city from feeling overwhelmingly dense. Along the river, we have a tremendous resource with the Department of Conservation Recreation, and we've got all of that open land. Might not be as well tended and beautiful as we would want it to be, but it's open, and you get a sense of a vista when you're in Cambridge and you see the DCR land and then the river.
Is that parkland threatened in any way, or is it really protected?
Well, it's protected in the sense that it's owned by the Commonwealth. So there's a process that would have to be gone through in order for the state to sell the land. And who knows, if the push came to shove and the DCR needed money for something, they might sell, probably not land in Cambridge, but they might sell land elsewhere in order to raise revenue to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
But we have the Alewife Reservation, that's the Department of Conservation, Recreation land. That's a reservation that's right here, accessible to people. There's the riverfront, as I mentioned. The Common, Cambridge Common, is going to get a redo, and that will be, I think, a new meeting place once it's done. Because right now it's not that well used. A Fresh Pond Reservation is another area. We just bought some land from Fresh Pond all the way through to Mount Auburn Street and then into Watertown, or right at the Watertown border, that's going to be converted to a bike and pedestrian path.
Uh-huh.
So, that's an exciting opportunity of keeping the city, keeping the amenities that make it livable here to have.
Any chance for new parks or pocket parks?
The city does look at, we have quite a lot of money set aside in a fund that could be used to buy land that could be converted to a park. But land is incredibly expensive in Cambridge, and we haven't really been able to buy too much land. We've been donated land in East Cambridge. We got, I think it's 4 acres in Kendall Square, and that's going to be converted to a park. The Volpe Transportation Center in Kendall Square, that's about 14 acres, and it's owned by the federal government. They're thinking maybe there could be parkland there. So there are opportunities, but...
I'd like one near me.
On Mass Ave?
Well, yeah, in Mass Ave or close by.
Okay, I'll write that down. I'll try to see what I can do about that.
I mean, there doesn't seem to be one really close. It doesn't
Right.
have to be
The
big.
closest
acre
one
would be
for
enough.
you is in front of City Hall.
Oh, that's true.
You get those green hills
Green.
right in
Green
front
hills.
of City Hall.
Cambridge City Hall.
That's what
great.
you've got, right?
Yeah, okay.
So
Okay.
So
And
I keep my eye on those things. I try to make sure that regulations that we have on the books for noise and for light, we keep our eye on them to make sure that people aren't bothered by too much noise and extraneous
big
light.
issue is net zero. What are we doing about that?
Right. So net zero is, I think, an exciting opportunity. It was a petition put forward by citizens to say that every new large building in the city, more than 25,000 square feet, so those are big buildings, has to have no net carbon emissions.
Mm-hmm.
So they can achieve that by a number of ways. Under the stretch code, which is a current building code, they have to already have an efficient building, so they're not wasting energy in the building. They have to try to make energy on-site, renewable energy, with solar panels on the roof, solar hot water, let's say, or maybe solar panels embedded in the shingles.
Passive solar?
A passive solar would help too, but they have to generate electricity or energy on-site.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they still have excess energy that they need in order to have the building run, then they can purchase renewable energy. Everyone, right now, any resident, any small business can go into the market and buy renewable energy, just wind energy, solar energy.
There's plenty of it out there?
I wouldn't say there's an infinite amount out there. Every year there's more and more because these companies realize the demand is there. So they're installing more wind turbines, installing more solar panels. The technology is improving. So this is a rapidly moving market. And so yes, there's more renewable energy coming into the grid every year, especially as people realize the trouble with fossil fuels. And then the fourth way that a building could achieve a net zero emissions, carbon emissions, is by buying renewable energy certificates. So that's a complicated fourth way that they could do it. But it's doable now. There are buildings in this country and in Europe that are no net carbon emissions, and I think that this is something that the city should embrace and move forward. Be a leader once again in this area of climate change.
I had a question and lost it. So we're gonna actually, I was gonna say about the new development, there's all this new development coming.
Right.
Are they gonna be bound by this?
Well, yes, they would. If this petition gets accepted, gets adopted by the city council,
Will it?
then it will become the law of the land. And any new building over 25,000 square feet would have to comply, yes. And it could be that the petition...
When is it gonna be passed or
Well,
discussed?
the petition expires November 17th.
It's not very far off.
No, it's not very far off. And we have...
It's after the election, though.
It's after the election. We have several meetings scheduled, panel discussions where the dialogue can really be based on facts and rather than fears.
Great, sounds good.
Yep.
Any last word? We got about 2 seconds.
Last words. Yes, I need a number one vote.
That's a biased
That's
position.
that's what everyone says. But as the newest elected city councilor, I'm actually the most vulnerable. Even though many people think with 2 open seats or 2 incumbents that aren't running, both women, by the way, that I'm guaranteed a seat. But there's no such thing as a guaranteed seat. So I do need to work for the number one votes. I do need to ask people for the number one votes, and that's what I'm doing. So
Good
thank
luck.
you very much.
Great,
Enjoy your next guest.
thank you very
He's
much.
really quite good.
Good, okay. Dennis, join us?
Yeah, you're summer.
Yeah,
You really are.
I don't know, I didn't know the chair now, but, put it as low as possible,
I think it is.
is it?
I'll see if I can. Yes, it is.
Come over here,
No, I'm not that much.
come over here, there you go. It's better. Okay,
I look forward to this.
welcome, Dennis. Dennis Carlone.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here.
You've been on TV before.
A few times, yes, I enjoy it each time.
Great. And, but this is your first time running for the council, right?
That's right. I've worked for 40 years and lived in Cambridge for 40 years, but this is the first time. I was a consultant to Cambridge for 30 years doing the East Cambridge Riverfront Plan and working with neighbors in East Cambridge. And I've reached that point in my life and I said, what do I want to focus on next? And this is it. We're really at a crossroads in Cambridge and this is the time.
Why is it a crossroads?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Much development has been approved in the last 2 years. In fact, more than's been built in the last 20 years. And that's equivalent to 12 John Hancock Towers have been already approved.
How much space is in a John Hancock Tower?
1 million square feet. So
So
12 million square feet have already been approved through a special permit or a master permit in the city. And that's the equivalent of 100,000 new commuters. And
100,000.
100,000 new
Uh-huh.
commuters, and it's out of balance kind of development. It's mostly commercial development that's been approved, and what we really need is a master plan that looks at this and balances commercial development with transportation improvements, with residential construction, And it needs to be done looking at even net zero needs that you discussed earlier with Minka. So we need somebody on the council who has this kind of experience. In fact, I'm the only candidate that
You're
has
the one.
planning, urban design, architecture, development background. I love the city like every other candidate, but I have the skills that are really necessary to bring about positive change. We've had so many upzonings.
You have to get your colleagues to agree with you about that.
Well, but that's what I do.
you say
I
getting-
build consensus,
Uh-huh.
and
You think you can do that with the council?
absolutely. And the reason is I've done it already. When we did the East Cambridge Riverfront, the Leechmere Canal area redevelopment, and worked with the neighborhood on that, I was told it was a pie in the sky project. That was published in the Globe. Well, when it was built, that author admitted that this was quite a project. In fact, it's been called a national model, in part because we incorporated neighborhood needs into the plan. It was a people-centered plan that, yes, it's $1 billion worth of development, a redevelopment of 40 acres of former industrial land that was polluted. And we redeveloped that with 5 neighborhood goals in mind, including new open space, getting traffic out of the neighborhood, building parking for the county courthouse, building a connection to the river, and preserving the historic courthouse complex. We did all that, and that's what real urban design and planning is. That's what zoning does. We rezoned that whole area, but we rezoned it in a way where we knew exactly where development was going.
When you say we rezoned it, the city rezoned it.
I was a consultant to the city. I was hired to come up with a rezoning plan. We came up with an urban design strategy that satisfied all 8 major actors in that area, including the neighborhood, the county, the state, the city, landowners, on and on. And we came up with a strategy. The one active user there could not get a mortgage. I'd rather not say who could not get a mortgage to put on an addition. That's how depressed the area was. And we came up with a scheme that even though we changed the zoning, we raised the value, but we imprinted into the zoning a master plan that included 13 acres of open space, publicly accessible open space. We included road improvements. We included what real planning is all about and what planning should be now. Now it seems to be site-specific. 1 block at a time gets upzoned, which, by the way, is illegal. It's called spot
Isn't there a
zoning.
large planning department in the city of Cambridge?
There is a large planning department, and there's some very talented people there who I've worked
And they
with.
don't have a plan, or what?
They say the latest scheme is that the city does have a plan. It's zoning. Zoning is not a plan. Zoning is a blunt tool at best. And in fact, if zoning is a plan, show me what that plan means. One of the things about zoning is I'm an expert in zoning, and I have to ask other experts what each of the zoning requirements really mean. It's too complex. It should be simplified. But to understand zoning, you have to show what that means. And nowhere in the city do you see a drawing that says, this is what the zoning means. So people are shocked when a new building goes up and they go, oh my God, I didn't know you could build that. And then they're even more shocked when it's built and they go, boy, that doesn't fit in. So zoning is a blunt tool. You need a people-centered master
But the planning
plan.
department doesn't actually do the zoning, right?
Oh, yes.
The zoning-
Yes,
I thought the zoning
they
board did.
propose it. The Board of Zoning Appeal reviews variances, the planning board approves it, and then sends it on to the council. But no one on the council, as I said earlier, has a planning, urban design, architecture, project management background, development background. I do. So they get proposals which they think, I'm sure, this is good for the city, but it doesn't look at the bigger picture. For instance, the present zoning and what's been upzoned recently and what's been built is out of whack. It's out of whack that no real transportation improvements are implemented as part of it. In East Cambridge, we did that on the riverfront. It doesn't require a comparable amount of housing so that new people who move into these new jobs in the new commercial buildings have a place to live. So where do they go if they don't have a place to live? And this is happening in Cambridge now. They go into areas near Kendall and Central Square. They go into the neighborhoods, East Cambridge, Area 4, Cambridge Port, Mid-Cambridge now, and they are literally moving people with less means out of the city because they can pay higher rents.
If you were elected to the council, what would you do to bring about change? What changes do you think would be worth doing, and how would you get them done?
Well,
What,
there are
is there any
people,
particular proposal? that
yes,
you want?
yes, the people-centered master plan that I mentioned.
Uh-huh. And-
That is looking at each area of potential development and analyzing its impact on adjoining houses, adjoining businesses. For instance, biotech buildings. We can build as many as we want in Cambridge. Everybody wants to develop here. There was one at 106 Hampshire Street, and the neighbor, Peter Lindquist, was literally tortured by the noise and light from there. There's another biotech building that's just recently been developed. It's actually a redevelopment of an office building, and it's affecting somebody on Green Street, Marilyn Wellens. Totally inappropriate locations for biotech. The city is now looking at, just down the block at Osborne Triangle, to develop that area, many acres, into a combined biotech residential district. Nobody wants to live next to a biotech building. In fact, no biotech building wants residential next to it because the noise and the air quality, the two do not support each other, yet that's what the current zoning is proposing. So in a people-centered master plan, we would look at the whole picture. How do you upgrade transportation? How do we make sure that the red line gets upgraded? It seems to me that if developers are going to develop commercial and residential buildings, that's impacting the red line. They should be part of that. There's now what is really a slush fund that the council has set up for any upzonings that developers have to put money in. Nobody knows where that money's going. That could go toward the red line improvement. That could be seed money to and make the state and the Fed say, my goodness, Cambridge is the only city in the country that's putting money toward these improvements. The attitude now is wait till there's a crisis and then the state will fund it.
But
You
that's
can't
always-
wait.
Isn't that always the case?
No, that's not planning. That's Pearl Harbor. And that is completely wrong. We have the best planning schools in the country. We've done, the East Cambridge development I've worked on for almost 30 years is considered a national model for redevelopment because we looked at all the issues: neighborhood, transportation, state, city, landowners, everybody. And that's what real planning is.
Would you be doing that kind of planning if you were elected?
Well, here's the interesting thing. The city sets the policy. City council sets policy. We can say that the city needs to do a people-centered master plan. We could incorporate that. I intend to be very active as I can be, even at planning board meetings, and bringing up all these issues again. The neighbors out there now, people who are concerned about this, can get behind me and other councilors who are behind this, and we can push this. We can be anything we want to be. Now it's just piecemeal, piece by piece, and you don't build places that way. Cities are not in the business of building buildings. It's in building places.
What is a place in that sense?
A place is the Lechmere Canal. It's the Charles Park in the East Cambridge. It's Bullfinch Square, where the county courthouse comes. It's places where people can congregate, where cafes can be. It's Mass Avenue in Central Square. That's a place. Now you probably know that Central Square is being proposed to have 16 stories of housing. It's ludicrous. You don't need that. It's sexy. It sounds exciting. This is what's happening around the world. It's not Cambridge. What you do in a traditional urban design is you reinforce what's good about a place. Central Square, what's good about Central Square is 4 to 5 story base that creates the room. The room is the square. It then scales down to the abutting neighborhoods behind it, so it's a welcome to Central Square. And this is what city building is all about. It's not about towers. We talk about being a green city, green buildings. Well, the least green thing you can do is build build towers, especially glass towers. Glass towers heat the winter sky. Toronto is now proposing to ban glass towers.
Hate the winter sky, what do you mean?
The higher a building, the more cold air hits the building. The more surface of the building is exposed, and heat from glass. Glass does not contain heat. Heat goes through glass no matter what you've done. I've done one of the greenest buildings in New Hampshire. We use 3 panes of glass, but we've limited the amount of glass to 40% of the skin. That's what Toronto's doing. Frankly, that's what Cambridge should be doing. We're throwing away energy. It's just like keeping light on towers at night. It's waste. It's also light pollution, night pollution.
And
So we can, if we really want to be green, if we really want to be a great city, there are ways to do that. And this is pro-development. I am a pro-development guy. I think parking lots and one-story buildings are inappropriate. So how do you plan for rebuilding the city in a way that reinforces why we all came here in the first place? That's what a great city is.
Sounds like it.
Yes, and I hope to do that. And, you know, there are other things that are related to this. Voters tell me that they're concerned about light pollution and noise pollution. The council since 2007 has been talking about making changes. Nothing has been done. My wife and I lived for 26 years where there was a floodlight next door that came on in the middle of the night, where private garbage trucks came at 4 in the morning to pick up restaurant waste. Now, this is a restaurant we went to. We talked to the restaurant, they changed it. 2 months, nothing happened. Then it happened again, 4 in the morning. And all it has to be is laws have to be written and approved. The other thing is the city has been talking about net zero. And we're going to do all these great things, and emissions have gotten worse. And you've probably seen the map where half of Cambridge will be underwater by 2050.
We're about out of time.
Well, thank you for listening. I want your #1 vote, and Ann, thank you for this time.
Thank you so much for coming and
Thank
telling
you.
us how Cambridge ought to be.
Well, you really need leadership that knows what they're talking about. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Appreciate it.
Very good. Okay, we'll